No Rest for the Wicked is an excellent new action RPG game from the studio who brought us the Ori games, both of which land in my top 5 Metroidvania games of all time. But with No Rest for the Wicked, Moon Studios have managed to blend a few genres together in such a convincingly fresh way that I really believe it creates a new formula that will likely be the starting point for many copycat games in the future. This is an early access title, and with that comes some drawbacks, as you'd imagine, the biggest of which in my experience was getting a smooth, stable frame rate even on a 3090 Ti system. But if we think of this as the framework and the foundation to the game, as only the first chapter of the story is currently available to play, it's very clear that this has legs, and by the time it reaches the 1.0 launch, it will stand as a landmark title for this exciting new genre. This is not a sponsored video, nor did I get a free code for the game. These are entirely my opinions and experiences in my almost 30 hours of time with it.
Let it burn! Show these mainlanders Sakura is our island!
What is No Rest for the Wicked then? Well, imagine Dark Souls gameplay did the fusion dance with Diablo's camera angle and randomized loot, add a little garnish of survival crafting neatly placed on top, and you'd be somewhere close. Wicked has Moon Studios' signature art style, but this time in a fully 3D explorable environment. It is absolutely gorgeous to look at. The hand-painted stylization of everything looks so unique, and you can even see the brush strokes on characters and environments when you look closer. It's really stunning. There are tons of secret paths to find and many ways to travel between the sections that sew together a pretty varied world map so far. We've got beaches, castles, plains, a huge main city, and sewers, just to name a few of the places you'll be exploring. Moon's mastery of the Metroidvania style of level design isn't lost here, whereas in those games you'd need to find skills allowing you to backtrack and traverse to new areas. In No Rest for the Wicked, you need to be fully observant to find vines to climb up, bodies of water to swim across, or ledges to platform in order to fully uncover the incredibly dense map and find all of its secrets. At first glance, the level design could appear kind of linear, but when you spend time climbing around and poking about, you'll realise how interconnected and vertical it really is. And exploring in this game just feels so incredible to do thanks to believably weighty physics and animation systems. There is no standalone jump button, which to be perfectly honest did kind of bug me at first. You'll need to just hold the sprint button down as you run off an edge to perform a jump. It can be a little clunky to judge the angle in which you jump because you can't manipulate the camera angle, but once you get the hang of it, it makes a lot more sense. The main city of Sacrament is absolutely huge, and you'll have the task of gathering resources to rebuild some of it. This acts as a sort of persistent side task between going out and questing. You can bring things like wood and metal ores back from your travels and allocate them to a task of, say, rebuild the blacksmith shop, and it can take up to 4 real-world hours for some of these tasks to be completed. But you won't notice that time go by because you'll be out cutting people's heads off and leveling up and doing all that cool shit. You can even purchase your own home in the city and decorate the interior, or you can just use it as a warehouse of chests to store all of the loot that you're hoarding. It's really unusual to see this type of feature in a game like this, but it's absolutely welcome. I'm sure as updates roll in, this will expand and the amount of things that you can do at your purchased properties will be more than just for show or to store loot. The combat, though, is where Wicked really shines. Much like Dark Souls, enemies can tear you apart if you don't pay close attention to their attack strings, don't overextend yourself, and manage your stamina properly. Unlike a Diablo-style ARPG where you just click spam through hordes of demons like it's nothing, here you really have to lock in, and the mob density is much more sparse, which create these almost duel-esque battles which are all still really engaging for me this many hours in. You sort of just have to get good, as they say. You do have iframes in your dodge roll, as you'd expect from a Souls-like game, but with this isometric camera angle, it lets you see enemies' swings of their weapons from a much more readable perspective, which for me made it much easier to decide which way was more optimal to roll to get the advantage for a counterattack. Enemies usually have a pretty telling wind-up or a sound cue which indicates the player on what they might do next, and so far there aren't too many instances where enemies would wind up and then bait your parry or roll with a delayed attack for not paying attention. And for that reason, I think although this game can be tough, it's never as punishing as a Dark Souls game, where enemy attacks can be extremely unpredictable with seemingly never-ending strings, especially when meeting a new mob for the first time. Also, the bonfire mechanic works quite differently too. They're called Serum Whispers in this game. There is fast travel, but only to the main city and then back to your last visited whisper. This is something you need to pay attention to if you don't want to keep running miles back to the spot you died at because you forgot to hit a closer whisper location. But it actually makes you experience traveling through the world more, and with the randomized loot boxes and previously discovered shortcuts, I never found it annoying. So these whispers are not exactly like bonfires at all really. They don't restore your health or respawn all of the enemies. They only allow for a respawn point if you die or to fast travel back to the city like I said. The way that the mob respawns work, to my knowledge, is that when you uncover the fog of war on the map, if you don't return to that area within a certain time, the fog of war covers that area of the map up again and spawns in tougher foes depending on how far through the story content you are or your player level. This means that returning to old areas isn't a case of being like an over-leveled beast just one-shotting everything. Instead, you'll have to keep your wits about you just as if you were going back through it for the first time. It's actually a genius system and I don't see it getting enough praise when people talk about it. You don't lose experience or loot on death, and you don't have an Estus flask equivalent either. Instead, you need to farm resources to cook food in which you use to heal with. This can be annoying to get used to at first, but after a while of playing, you know how prepared you need to be when venturing out from the main city. You'll be cooking the best meals with Gordon the chef, yes he was named after Gordon Ramsay apparently, with the ingredients that you've collected along the way in bulk to avoid having no heals for a tough boss fight. There are light attacks and heavy charge attacks on the same button, but holding the right bumper down allows you to use the weapon rune attacks. Imagine these as like sort of special attacks in a fighting game which cost a bit of meter to use. They come in all different varieties and are really fun to play around with. There are also these combo rush attacks that you can do with each weapon by attacking after a roll. These are really powerful and satisfying attack strings, and they're different for every weapon. The characters have really long arms, and some people have been slamming this on Twitter as they find it ugly or whatever. I do think it looks a little weird in the character creator, but once the character's got clothes on, it all fits the art direction and that stylized look that Moon are going for. But I also believe another reason why these characters have kind of long arms is for the dramatic look when swinging a weapon. It also means that you have more range when swinging a sword about too. Probably to combat any depth perception issue the game might suffer from given its choice of camera angle and how precise the combat is. You have familiar RPG systems of leveling up and allocating skill points to stats like strength, dex, intelligence, etc. There are weapons that scale with those stats respectively. Currently though, there is no way to respec skill points, so once you go down a path of say strength, you'll be locked to that path because the level cap is 30 at the moment and you can't get enough skill points to max out all stats. The devs are extremely active on Twitter, replying to fans and giving hints on what's to come with the game. They put out 6 hotfixes in 7 days post-launch, which is absolutely crazy. They definitely can't have slept much in their opening week. Each patch made the performance slightly better, but I'm still not getting a smooth frame rate throughout the game, as you can tell from the footage here. That is my biggest issue at the moment. The gameplay itself is phenomenal, it's just let down by performance, which is way worse than it should be given my system specs. DLSS is coming in a future patch, and it just can't come soon enough, really. There are also inventory management issues with how many resources there are in the game and how little space you have in the inventory to carry them. There's a lot of running to and from chests, which is really time wasting and annoying. The devs have said that crafting from chests is coming in an upcoming patch, and that would really solve a lot of this, but I think there should be more slots available in your backpack to carry things. As many times I've had to destroy items I'm carrying to make way for something new, and I'd much rather have sold the item instead of just deleting it. Overall though, I'm seriously hooked on No Rest for the Wicked. I think it's got an amazing future. I also feel that the early reviews that came in from some of the big sites like IGN or Gaming Bolt gave it a really unfairly low score. I don't agree with their criticisms that this blend of genres doesn't work. I think they'll all be eating their words once this game is more fleshed out. This will be another Alien Isolation incident. The user score will be drastically higher than the critic score unless they update their review later down the line. There's only the opening chapter to play right now, and it runs about 13 to 15 hours to get it done, depending on how much you rush it or how instantly good at the combat you get. After that, there are bounties which update weekly and daily to keep you busy. There are endgame repeatable Crucible dungeons which are really tough but give you insane loot and XP. There's also that city rebuilding upgrading tasks thing I mentioned earlier to grind for. I've had almost 30 hours now and I'll definitely be sinking more into it. I cannot wait for the multiplayer to be added. That's going to apparently be the first major update to the game. I think that would be so cool to just be able to share this experience with your friends and synergize your builds. But I just wanted to give my early impressions of the game so far, as I'm really into it and I want to spread the good word. Spread the gospel. I hope some of you guys give it a chance, as it really is fresh and awesome. If you can't stand rocky frame rates though, and to be honest, I couldn't blame you, then I'd say wait a bit longer for Moon to iron them out a bit more. It's definitely playable right now, but it's going to be 10 times better with a stable FPS. Anyway, like, subscribe, and I'll see you when I'm looking at you. Thanks guys.